Hello and welcome to the RDC channel. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to use jumping or plyometric training to help make you as strong, fit and fast as possible. So if you like it, subscribe and show it to a friend. If you're a parent, show it to another parent. That really helps me get towards my goal of helping over 100,000 rugby players. That's going to be through the free channels or be through my RDC coaching where you'll be as strong, fit and fast as possible. Now, let's get into this. In this video, I'm going to tell you about beginners, how much they need to be jumping, intermediate athletes, and then advanced athletes. So, let's get into beginners and my favorite progressions. If you're a beginner, what you need to be doing is first working on your landings, okay? Because you haven't got the coordination quite right yet. Your brain hasn't built the pathways down to your muscles. So, a simple thing you could do is go step, across, and land. Step, across, and land. Okay, with these, you can do a fair bit of volume, okay, so you could do 20 or 30 reps in a session of just those. So if you think about it, you might do your back squat, and then you might go straight to those, because if that's not going to take too much out of your legs. It's not going to impair your recovery before you go back to your back squat. It actually might give you a bit more rest, ready to do that. So that's a really good way to start off your jump training or plyometric training, is just working on your landings. And you can advance that to a box where you're landing stick, okay? All about that stick, just stepping off. You want to make it a bit harder, you can start to go up either higher boxes or you can jump up into it, stick, jump up, stick. So that's a really good way, okay? Even if you don't have a box, you could do that 2 feet. Whoa, we dropped the microphone. Okay. So that's the easiest way to get yourself going into some plyometric training. Now, still looking at beginners, okay, what you can then do, maybe you're doing your back squat, maybe you're doing some sort of leg press, right? In between the leg press, we could use contrast training, okay? Really big from Russian training is doing contrast training. You can do your back squat, 10 seconds rest, and then go straight to some jumps, okay? So some simple jumps where you're just jumping up, landing, going again, okay? Or just up, land. Now, beginners, if you're going to do that style of training, what I recommend is just doing that for 2 reps, okay? And really focusing on your height that you're getting out of it and sticking the landing, okay? And being really solid on that landing, because that's going to help you build up the muscles eccentrically. It's going to help out your tendons. It's going to help out so many different things if you can do it just like that. Now, if you're intermediate, you probably can get up to about 5 reps. 5 to 10 reps, depending on how you're going with it. If you're advanced, something like that, you could probably do for 20 reps. So, you got to think though, a lot of people think they're advanced when they're not, okay? So, make sure that you're not overshooting yourself, okay? Understand if you're a beginner, if you're intermediate, or if you're advanced. And that just goes by like how long you've been training for, how many plyometrics you've done in your lifetime. Okay, so if you've been training for 2+ years, properly been doing plyometrics, then that's great. Now, before I go further, if you're in season, you do not need to do anywhere near as much volume. Okay, because when you're playing, you are running, jumping, you're sprinting, you're changing angles. So you're already doing a lot of this stuff. So make sure that you're not going to do these bigger plyometrics that I'm about to show you. Okay. So, as we start to advance plyometrics, what we can do is start to add in things to make them harder, okay? Now, here we go. When we're doing these, what we can do is jump up higher and try and get more height, okay? So, if I want more height, I'm going to either step off a bigger box, I might step off something this high, I might step. I'm just trying to get as much height as possible. And when you do something advanced like that, what you need to try and do is get as much height out as possible. Okay, so you need to put as much intensity into every single rep that you do, and it's not just lazy. Now, that's where I'm critical of CrossFitters and things like that, because they do a lot of box jumps, right? So they do a lot of box jumps. Say they're jumping onto a box. This is not very stable. Jumping onto a box. But they do it just to get over the top of it. There's not actually that much intensity there. Now, if you want to make changes, you actually need to do things with intensity, okay? Which means that you need to, it needs to be an 8 RPE hard, okay? Which just means like it's nearing your max. Whereas like most people will do box jumps and they'll do their little twists and stuff like that. It's actually not that hard, so it's not going to create the change you want. It's going to get you a little bit of endurance, yes, but in terms of making you faster and more powerful, not so much. Okay? So, now I'm going to get to my king of jumps. Okay, so my king of my jumps is a broad jump. So it's a 2 feet broad jump, which I'm about to show you. Now, when you're a beginner or at the start of the program, what I like to do is just to jump, stick the landing, go again. Jump, stick the landing, go again. And what I actually like to do is actually put out markers for each one where you jumped. Because what we want to do is try and create that intensity to keep on beating that, or at least be in line with that. Because if you drop back from there, then you're fatigued too much and you've gone too far for the day. You're done. Now, so you put out markers and you measure each jump. Right? So maybe you do 3 jumps in a row. Okay, and you measure each one, and what you come to the next set when you go again to do it again. So this might be at the start of the program because it's quite high intensity. You might have done your warm up. It can also go squats very well. It can go with your leg press. It can go with step ups. It can go in between things as contrast training to make your training much easier. Now, as you start to progress, we can really start to turn into a plyometric exercise where you're lengthening the muscle and you're contracting really fast. Now, this is why I think it's one of the best exercises you can do as a broad jump with your squats is you learn how to move your full body pushing forward. Now, so much of rugby is actually going straight forward, right? Driving your body forward. And so, broad jumps, you're going to be able to create as much power as possible. It's very safe in terms of like you're not really jumping off high things, or not jumping onto high things like a box jump. So it's very, you can use it anywhere. You don't need a big box. So for me, it's one of my top exercises that I actually use on my programs with contrast with other leg workouts. Okay. Sometimes I use it to stimulate. So sometimes I might do some sort of jump first. It might be a broad jump straight into a squat, because that's actually going to stimulate the nervous system because you're firing up as so much as you can. You're just jumping as far as you can. So you're literally being able to put as much intensity as possible into each jump. And that's why I really like it. Whereas a box jump, sometimes you're not quite doing that. Now, I'm not saying box jumps are bad. You can use box jumps too. And I use box jumps. A box jump simply is just jumping up onto something. Okay, so you can use that too. And then, when you get to expert level, you're starting to do your broad jumps on one leg. Okay, so your broad jumps on one leg, same thing. We start off with a stick. Oh, that wasn't a great stick. Stick. Okay, and then as we want to advance it, we can go into our double, or our bounding. You could essentially call it is bounding. So, that would be your next real progression, is about doing that on one leg. Because if you can do that on one leg, then your sprinting is going to become so much easier. You're also going to be building up the tendons. Now, how much do you really want to be doing that? In season, as minimal as possible, like maybe one set a week, like 10 to 20 reps is all you really need. Because in season, your whole plan is just to make sure that you get through the season without injuries, okay, and while keeping up your strength. Yes, you can get stronger during the season, but it is a lot more taxing on the body, and it can be quite hard. If you're younger, it's easier to do. If you're older, not so easy to do, but still doable, okay. But usually, the main thing during the season is you want to be able to keep going during the season. You don't want to lose that power that you've built up. During the season, off season though, when you're not playing, you can be doing this. I like this between 30 and 60 reps, depending on how developed someone is. On the lower side, if they're a beginner, or just building into it, and if they're more advanced, up to 60, and then using some other jumps to get you up to. If you're advanced, I like 120 jumps per week, roughly 100 to 120, depends on what kinds of jumps we're doing. And then if you're a beginner, obviously doing less, like when I say less, like 20 to 60 reps per week of jumps. That doesn't include the sprint training that I put in either. Now, let's go to the most intense one. Hopefully we can see here. I think we can. Now, I don't have a big box, but I do have this where I can just fall off and land. So this should be stick the landing. Now, that's probably one of my most intense ones. And it's a really good one to actually build up the legs. All you're doing is dropping down off a high surface and landing and sticking. Now, you've got to build up to that one. So you don't start off from the highest height. You start off where you were before, and then you should gradually build up the height as you go. And that one, I would only do for a maximum number of about 6 to 10 in a session. Okay, so that's quite intense, that one. So, we've got all these other plyometrics or jumping we could be doing. We could be doing our skip work. Okay, you can be doing your A skips. I like my A skips. Make sure when you're coming down, you're hitting the floor. Get used to hitting the floor. I find that helps with my sprint training. Helps me coaching kids and people with their sprint work is to hit the floor with their skip work. It also helps you be a bit more rhythmical. You'll find a lot of the best rugby players and sports people in the world, they have a lot of rhythm, which I didn't have as a kid. It took me years to build up that rhythm to feel like, I could do these things quite well. And so much of it is actually coordination of the body. So when you're quite coordinated, and that goes for everything, you're skipping and all that, then yeah, it's actually going to convert really well. So we have our legs. So we have little jumps. We also have our most basic things. So this is another beginner's exercise I like to do is your calf raises, right? Because that's going to help you build up into it. But we can actually make this a jumps as well. And you can just do this. And you can do this with weight. And you can do quite more reps with that as well. You can do your skipping. Skipping is a great way to warm up. Your jumps, get you coordinated, building up calves. So we've got our small jumps, we've got our landings, we've got our big jumps. And we've also got our in-between, which is like our skipping. What else did I want to go through? That's about it for that. There's always more. There's so many different jumps you can do. But I tend to just use a few of them and then rotate them so we can keep getting better at those main ones like broad jumps and obviously our smaller jumps and our depth jumps. Sometimes the depth jumps I like to use weight as well, so I'll hold 2 dumbbells, jump off, so you get used to having more weight, gets you more of an adaptation. Now, with your upper body, now I also like to use plyometrics with our upper body as well. So with our upper body plyometrics, something as simple as going against like a wall and doing a push-up. That's explosive. And then the landing. So when you're going down, it's quite a quick contraction. I don't do too much rotational or throw work. I do some. I might use a medicine ball against the wall, throw it into the wall. That is also a good one, but there's only so much that can convert. And I'll tell you why. So it's too light for it to actually do anything. There's not enough muscle tension for it to really make a big difference. And so like if you're just continuously throwing something against the wall, if you're not creating more tension, then it's not going to get that much better. And I'll put it this way. So like a baseball thrower will throw a baseball, which is a certain weight. Now if he just keeps throwing that same baseball, it'll cut off at a certain speed. He'll get it to a certain speed and that will be it because there's no more adaptation there available. Okay, there needs to be more muscle fibers recruited to be able to throw it faster. Now, we can also increase the push-up one by just going straight down to the floor. So like if I put this, get this out of the way, if I put this straight down to the floor, and go, and it's coming down, it's the catching yourself and stopping yourself and keep going down is actually the beauty in that one. And it's quite tough. I'd only do about 6 reps of that total in a session, maximum. because that will really tear apart your chest. So I hope that's really helped you, and I hope you can take away some of this stuff and start putting it into programming. You've got your contrast work that you can do with your squats or any of your leg work. You can do it with your sprints, you can do your skipping. These are all jumps that are actually going to help you out in the field. If you liked it, please share it. That will really help me out. And if you really want to take your training to another level, you want to be the strongest, fittest, and fastest you've ever been, please check out my programming. Send me a message and we can chat about it.